Every person you have ever been deeply triggered by was showing you something about yourself, something you buried so long ago that you forgot it existed, something that still runs your life from the basement of your unconscious. Carl Jung called this your shadow, and he did not believe it was optional to face it. He believed that everything you refuse to confront in yourself will keep appearing in your relationships, your decisions, your emotional reactions, and your patterns of self-sabotage until you finally turn around and look at it. Most people never do. They spend their entire lives reacting to their shadow without realizing it exists. They call it bad luck, bad partners, bad timing. They say things like, "I always attract the wrong people," or "I do not know why I keep ending up in the same situation," or "Something about that person just gets under my skin, and I cannot explain it." Jung could explain it, and the explanation is one of the most uncomfortable and ultimately liberating ideas in all of psychology. In the first 2 videos in this series, we explored how destined connections work according to Jung's framework, how shadow projection, the anima and animus, and synchronicity reveal the nature of your deepest relationships. Then we covered the 4 signs that distinguish connections meant to last from connections meant to teach. But both of those videos left one critical question unanswered. What do you actually do with everything these connections reveal? How do you take the raw psychological material that your relationships keep surfacing and transform it into something that makes you whole? That is shadow work. And Jung considered it the single most important thing a human being can do for their own development. Not therapy in the way most people think of it. Not positive affirmations or gratitude journals. Something far more demanding and far more rewarding. This is the process. And I need to be honest with you from the start. Parts of this will be uncomfortable to hear, because genuine shadow work does not make you feel good first. It makes you feel seen. And being truly seen, especially by yourself, is one of the most confronting experiences a person can have. Let us begin with what the shadow actually is in precise psychological terms, because most of what the internet tells you about this concept is either oversimplified or flat out wrong. Jung did not define the shadow as your dark side. He did not define it as your demons or your trauma or your toxic traits. The internet has turned shadow into shorthand for everything bad about you. That is not what Jung meant. Not even close. The shadow is everything about you that was not allowed. Go back to your earliest years, before you had language for what was happening, before you understood the rules. You came into the world as a complete spectrum of human possibility. You had aggression and tenderness, selfishness and generosity, wildness and discipline, sexuality and innocence, ambition and contentment, joy and rage. Every human trait existed in you as potential. And then the editing began. Your family had rules about which parts of you were acceptable. Some were spoken. Do not raise your voice. Be polite. Do not cry. Be strong. Do not be selfish. Be good. Some were unspoken but equally powerful. You learned which emotions made your parents tense, which behaviors earned silence instead of affection, which parts of you seemed to cause the people you depended on for survival to withdraw their love. And because you were a child, and because a child's survival depends entirely on maintaining the attachment bond with their caregivers, you did the only rational thing. You amputated the parts that threatened the bond. Not consciously. You did not sit down at 5 years old and decide to stop being angry. It happened automatically. Your psyche performed a kind of emergency surgery, cutting away the traits that seemed to put you in danger and shoving them into the unconscious, where they would not cause any more problems. Except they did not stop existing. They stopped being visible, to you and to the world. But beneath the surface, every amputated trait continued to live, continued to grow, continued to develop, but without any conscious guidance, without any integration, without any light. That is the shadow, not your evil twin, your unlived self, the full human being you would have been if no one had ever told you that certain parts of you were unacceptable. And here is the part that changes everything about how you understand your relationships. The shadow does not stay hidden quietly. It projects, constantly, onto the people around you, especially onto the people you have the strongest emotional reactions to. Jung identified 2 directions of shadow projection, and understanding both of them is the first real step of shadow work. The first direction is negative projection. This is when you encounter someone and feel an immediate, disproportionate dislike or irritation, not mild annoyance, the kind that sits in your chest, the kind that makes your jaw tighten, the kind where you find yourself thinking about that person hours later, running arguments in your head, feeling a charge that objectively makes no sense given what actually happened. When this occurs, Jung would say, your shadow has recognized itself. The quality you despise in that person is almost always a quality you carry, but have disowned. The co-worker whose arrogance enrages you may be reflecting the ambition you were punished for as a child. The friend whose emotional neediness exhausts you may be carrying the vulnerability you locked away because someone once told you it was weakness. The partner whose anger terrifies you may be mirroring the rage you buried so deep that you convinced yourself you do not even have it. This is not comfortable to hear. The first time someone encounters this idea, the instinct is to reject it. No, I am nothing like that person. That is the shadow talking. That defensive reaction, that immediate certainty that you are nothing like the person who triggers you, is itself a signature of how thoroughly you have disowned that trait. The second direction is positive projection, and this one is sneakier because it feels good. This is when you encounter someone and feel immediate, overwhelming admiration, fascination, almost worship. You see qualities in them that seem extraordinary. Their confidence, their creativity, their emotional freedom, their ability to speak their mind, take risks, command attention, be fully and unapologetically themselves. You put them on a pedestal. You might even build your life around proximity to them. Romantic partners, mentors, celebrities, leaders, anyone who seems to possess the qualities you secretly wish you had. Jung would say, this is also shadow projection. These idealized qualities are not absent in you. They are buried. The confidence you worship in someone else is the confidence that was shamed out of you. The creativity you admire from a distance is the creativity you abandoned because someone told you it was impractical. The freedom you are drawn to like a moth to light is the freedom you sacrificed to be acceptable. Positive projection feels like love. Sometimes it is the beginning of love. But if it stays as projection, it becomes a trap. You outsource your potential to another person and then depend on their presence to feel alive, which is why losing someone you have idealized can feel like losing yourself. You are not just losing them, you are losing access to the parts of you that only felt real when they were nearby. This also explains why certain breakups devastate you far more than the relationship itself would seem to justify. You dated someone for 4 months and you are grieving like you lost a limb. People around you do not understand. You barely understand. But what you are actually mourning is not 4 months of dinners and conversations. You are mourning the version of yourself that only came alive in their presence. The confident you, the passionate you, the fully expressed you. That version felt so real when they were there, and now it has vanished. Not because they took it with them, but because it was never consciously yours to begin with. It was projected, and projections disappear when the screen is removed. Shadow work, the real kind, involves reclaiming both directions, taking back the qualities you have projected outward, both the ones you hate and the ones you worship, and integrating them into your conscious identity, not acting on every impulse, not becoming reckless or cruel, but acknowledging the full spectrum of who you are and learning to hold all of it with awareness. So how do you actually do this? Jung outlined a process, though he was clear that it is not a weekend project. It is a lifelong practice. But it begins with 3 specific steps that anyone can start today. The first step is identification. learning to recognize when the shadow is active. Start with your triggers, not mild preferences or casual dislikes, the reactions that carry emotional voltage. Write down the names of the people who provoke the strongest responses in you, positive or negative. Beside each name, write the specific quality that triggers you, not their actions, their quality: controlling, selfish, weak, arrogant, needy, reckless, cold, intense, free, magnetic, powerful. These words are your shadow map. Each one points to a trait in your own psyche that has been exiled from your conscious identity. You do not have to believe this yet. You just have to be honest enough to write the list. Then ask yourself one question about each quality. When in my life was this trait first punished, shamed, or made unwelcome? You might be surprised by how quickly the memories surface. The time you were told you were too much. The moment you learned that assertiveness would cost you love. The day you decided, without words, that a certain part of you was not safe to show. The look on a parent's face that taught you more than any spoken rule ever could. This is not about blaming your parents or your past. Jung was clear about this. Your caregivers were almost certainly doing their best with their own unintegrated shadow material. They passed on what was passed to them. The point is not blame, the point is awareness. You cannot integrate what you have not identified, and you cannot identify what you refuse to trace back to its origin. This is where the shadow was born, not in darkness, in survival. You did not reject these parts of yourself because they were wrong. You rejected them because keeping them felt dangerous, and for a child it probably was. The second step is dialogue, and this is where the work gets genuinely transformative. Jung practiced what he called active imagination, a technique where you engage your unconscious material not by analyzing it from a distance, but by interacting with it directly. Think of it as an internal conversation with the parts of yourself you have spent your entire life avoiding. This is not visualization for relaxation, this is confrontation. And it requires something that modern self-help rarely asks of you: stillness without an agenda. The willingness to sit with discomfort and not immediately try to resolve it, reframe it, or turn it into a lesson. Just to be with it. To let the unconscious material come forward on its own terms rather than on yours. You take one of the qualities from your shadow map, the one that carries the most charge, and you sit with it, not to fix it, not to understand it intellectually, but to let it speak, to ask it what it needs, to hear what it has been trying to tell you through every trigger, every overreaction, every relationship pattern that you could not break no matter how hard you tried. You can do this through journaling, through meditation, through art, through honest conversation with someone you trust deeply. The medium does not matter. What matters is that you approach the disowned quality not as a problem to solve, but as a part of yourself to meet. As if you were sitting across from someone you had not spoken to in decades, and you were finally ready to listen. If your shadow quality is anger, you might discover that beneath the anger is a desperate need to be respected that was never met. If your shadow quality is neediness, you might find underneath it a capacity for deep emotional connection that you have been starving. If your shadow quality is arrogance, you might uncover a genuine confidence and ambition that was forced underground and distorted by years of suppression. The shadow is not the enemy, it is the messenger. And the message is almost always the same. I am the part of you that you abandoned. And I have been trying to get your attention ever since. Jung believed that this dialogue, when done honestly, produces a kind of internal reconciliation that nothing else can achieve. Not medication, not willpower, not positive thinking. Because you are not overriding the unconscious, you are integrating it. You are bringing the exiled parts back into the whole. And when that happens, something shifts at a structural level. The triggers lose their voltage. The patterns stop repeating. The projections withdraw, not because you forced them to, but because the material they were carrying has finally been received. The third step is integration. And this is the one that changes your relationships permanently. Integration means learning to live as the full spectrum of who you are, not performing the shadow qualities, not swinging to the opposite extreme, but holding the tension between opposites within yourself without collapsing into either side. If your shadow quality is aggression, integration does not mean becoming aggressive. It means developing access to healthy assertiveness, the ability to say no, to defend your boundaries, to stand your ground without guilt. If your shadow quality is vulnerability, integration does not mean becoming a puddle of emotion at every moment. It means allowing tenderness to exist alongside your strength, letting people see you without your armor when it is safe to do so. Jung called this holding the tension of opposites. He considered it the hallmark of psychological maturity, the ability to be both strong and soft, both independent and deeply connected, both disciplined and spontaneous, both serious and playful, not alternating between extremes, holding both simultaneously, being large enough internally to contain your full humanity. And here is where this connects directly to everything we have discussed in this series. When you integrate your shadow, you stop projecting it onto others. And when you stop projecting, your relationships transform at their foundation. The partner who used to trigger irrational anger in you now simply has a quality you can observe without being hijacked by it. The person you used to idolize now looks human, admirable, but no longer a god. You stop seeking in others what you refuse to develop in yourself. You stop punishing people for reflecting back the parts of you that you have not faced. And the connections that are truly meant for you, the ones we discussed in the first video, can finally function at their highest level, because you are no longer bringing a fragmented self to the relationship. You are bringing a whole one. You are no longer unconsciously asking your partner to carry the weight of your unlived life. You are living it yourself and inviting them to witness it. Jung wrote that this process, individuation through shadow integration, is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming complete. And complete people love differently than incomplete ones. They love with more freedom, more honesty, more generosity, because they are not secretly terrified that their hidden parts will be discovered. They have already discovered them. They have already made peace with them. And from that peace comes a capacity for intimacy that most people never access, because they never do the work that makes it possible. Now, I want to be clear about something. Shadow work is not something you do once and finish. It is not a checklist. It is not a phase you complete and then graduate from. New layers of the shadow reveal themselves throughout your entire life. Every major life transition, every deep relationship, every crisis, every loss will surface new material. Material you thought you had already dealt with. Material you did not even know existed. That is not a failure of the process. That is the process. Jung himself was doing shadow work until the day he died. He never claimed to be finished. He claimed to be engaged, and he believed that the willingness to keep looking, to keep engaging with the parts of yourself that are uncomfortable and unfamiliar and frightening, is the single most meaningful commitment a person can make. Not to a partner, not to a career, not to an ideology, to their own wholeness. Because here is the truth that sits beneath everything we have covered in these 3 videos. The quality of your relationships will never exceed the quality of your relationship with yourself. The depth of connection you can experience with another person is directly limited by the depth of connection you have with your own unconscious. If there are vast territories inside you that you refuse to explore, those same territories will remain inaccessible in your relationships. You will hit a ceiling again and again, and you will blame the other person, or blame yourself, or blame fate. But the ceiling was never out there. It was always in here. Shadow work removes the ceiling, not all at once, not painlessly, but permanently. Each piece of the shadow that you reclaim makes you larger, more alive, more capable of the kind of love that Jung considered the pinnacle of human psychological development. Individuated love. Love between 2 whole people who have each done the difficult, terrifying, beautiful work of meeting themselves completely. That is what this entire series has been building toward, not a theory about relationships, not a framework for diagnosing your connections, a practice for becoming the kind of person who can experience the deepest connection available to human beings. If this shifted something in you, if something in this video made you uncomfortable in a way that felt important, that discomfort is your shadow saying hello. Do not look away. Subscribe to this channel because we are going deeper into archetypes, into the collective unconscious, into the parts of Jung's work that most psychology channels are not willing to touch because they require more honesty than most audiences are ready for. But you are still here, 3 videos deep, which tells me something about you. So here is what I want to know. What quality have you spent your entire life rejecting in yourself? The one that keeps showing up in the people who trigger you the most. Name it in the comments. Not for me, for yourself. Because naming it is the first act of integration, and integration is where everything changes.